So here's an interesting story regarding Jesus and his powers. On Monday, we read about Jesus' first miracle. On Tuesday, we read about Jesus standing up for his defeated people. On Wednesday, we read that Jesus can see our faith. And yesterday, we saw that Jesus came for the sinners, not for the righteous. So as you read stories like these in the Gospels, you realize how powerful Jesus is. I mean, after all, he is God, which of course means that he is all powerful. Someone once told me that despite him being all powerful, we, the people, have the ability of limiting Jesus' power. I don't want to confuse you, so let's look at the story so we can see what this argument is. We're going to read Matthew chapter 13, verses 54 through 58. Coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. Where did this man get his wisdom and these miraculous powers? They asked. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home. And he did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. So in verse 55, the people ask an interesting question regarding Jesus. Isn't this the carpenter's son? So as you can see, even in Jesus' time, they were concerned with prestige, with titles. People like to judge us based on our connections. Was your father a bad man? Then most likely you will end up being a bad man. Did your mother constantly make bad choices? Then you will most likely make bad choices too. Are your friends alcoholics and drug addicts? Then you'll probably end up just like them too. The truth is, we are influenced by those around us, but those around us don't define us. As young people, we're constantly judged based on our friendships and our connections. We often like to solve everything with the classic statement, oh, only God can judge me, not the people. I guess that's true, but we can't be too arrogant and simply brush off all of the criticism. There needs to be a point where we reconsider some aspects of our lives if people are constantly criticizing them. Verse 56 and 57 say that the people wondered where Jesus obtained his wisdom, and due to them not making sense of it, they were offended by it. It's kind of difficult to reflect on this verse without going into a sermon. While you want to be wise, we need to acknowledge that eventually your wisdom will intimidate people, and this will bring conflict. The truth is that it's difficult to be a good example around those closest to you, meaning your friends and family. And the question obviously is why? Well, simply because they're close enough to you to know about your past mistakes and your sins and all that. This is one of the main reasons why I don't really like preaching to my family, because I can preach and tell them, be patient, just how Jesus was. But they know that sometimes I'm not patient with certain things. Instead, you preach wisdom to others. And this is what Jesus says at the end of verse 57. He says that a prophet is honorable everywhere except in his own home. Verse 58, I feel like, is the important part. It says that Jesus did not do any miracles there because of the people's lack of faith. So this is where we get the argument that our lack of faith can limit Jesus' powers. See, it's not that we limit Jesus' powers. It's simply that Jesus does not want to force a miracle in our lives if we don't want it. That's why we constantly hear sermons all the time about prayers. Because through prayer, we sort of give Jesus like permission to perform miracles in our lives. So if you are in need of a miracle or some drastic change in your life, don't just say, oh, Jesus knows what I want. He knows my thoughts. I don't need to tell him. That's wrong. You need to tell him. You need to be explicit, and you need to let him know that you do welcome him and his miracles in your life. So this is the end for Jesus in the Gospels for this week. I hope that you've been able to reflect even a little bit, or maybe learn a few things from the other 4 meditations. And I'll be back next week with our next set of topics. Bye.